There's a dangerous paradox in how we spend money. We tell ourselves we buy luxury goods because we have taste or because we appreciate quality. That is a lie. We buy them because of a psychological reflex called status signaling. When the human ego feels threatened, it buys a weapon. The luxury watch isn't telling time, it's telling your peers, I am winning and you are losing. But here's the twisted part. The people we're trying to impress are rarely our friends. They're our rivals. We go into debt to win a silent argument with people we secretly despise. We assume this flex culture is a modern disease caused by Instagram and marketing algorithms. It isn't. This specific form of madness was engineered in 1805 by a man who understood the dark side of human vanity better than anyone in history. If you think you're immune to his influence, you're wrong. His story reveals the exact trap you're currently walking into. Brummell was born a commoner in a world ruled by biological caste. He attended Eton and Oxford with the sons of dukes, surrounded by wealth he couldn't match and titles he couldn't inherit. Psychologically, this creates a status deficit. The human mind cannot handle feeling at the bottom of a hierarchy. It triggers the same neural pathways as physical pain. So Brummell decided that if he couldn't outrank them by birth, he would outstyle them by force. But to win a game he was rigged to lose, he had to rewrite the rules of power. Before Brummell, status was signaled by abundance. Aristocrats dressed like peacocks, powdered wigs, rouge, pink silks, jewels. A more is more economy. Brummell realized that if he couldn't compete on abundance, he would compete on restriction. He introduced the Great Renunciation. He wore only black wool, white linen, and perfect tailoring. No jewels, no perfume. His rule was absolute. If John Bull turns around to look at you, you're not well dressed, you're too stiff, too tight, or too fashionable. This wasn't just fashion, it was a psychological weapon. This is where the psychology gets dark. He weaponized the looking-glass self, a sociological concept stating that we do not see ourselves directly, we see ourselves only as a reflection in the eyes of others. Brummell spent 5 hours every morning getting dressed, not for himself, but to curate the reflection he would see in the eyes of the elite. His valet would carry armfuls of ruined cravats from the dressing room, calling them our failures. This wasn't vanity, it was anxiety performing as perfection. He knew that if the knot slipped, the world would see him for what he was, a middle-class imposter. This anxiety is the engine of the luxury economy. You feel it when you check your phone after posting a photo, waiting for the validation of a like. You feel it when you wear a brand logo, hoping it signals your tribe. You're outsourcing your self-esteem to an audience. Brummell escalated this to a pathological level. He realized that to maintain high value, he had to practice social scarcity. In economics, scarcity drives value. Brummell applied this to human interaction, treating the most powerful people in Europe with utter disdain, and instead of killing him for it, they became addicted to him. When a duchess asked him to dinner, he would accept only if she promised not to tell anyone. When the Prince Regent greeted him, Brummell would often ignore him. He once famously asked a companion within earshot of the prince, "Who's your fat friend?" This was social suicide, but it worked. Why? Mimetic desire. We desire what others desire, but we crave what rejects us. By rejecting the king, Brummell placed himself above the king. He thought he had won, but he had made a fatal miscalculation about human nature. He became the arbiter of reality. If Brummell didn't like the cut of your coat, you were socially dead. He was the first influencer, converting social capital into actual credit. Tailors let him run up roughly $4 million in modern debt because the beau wearing their clothes was the best marketing in London. But this house of cards was built on a fatal psychological error, the spotlight effect. The spotlight effect is the cognitive bias where we believe people pay attention to us far more than they actually do. We walk into a room and think everyone notices our shoes, our awkwardness, our success. The data shows they don't. They're too busy worrying about what you think of them. Brummell believed London's elite, the ton, were his loyal audience. He thought they loved him. They didn't. They loved the mirror he provided. They loved that being seen with him made them feel cool. The moment that mirror cracked, he learned the truth about transactional friendship. In 1816, the debt finally outran the reputation. Brummell fled to France in the middle of the night. He expected his friends, the dukes, the lords, the prince, to rescue him. The phone never rang. The Prince Regent became King George IV and never spoke Brummell's name again. When you buy status, you enter a transactional relationship with the world. As long as you can pay the dinners, the clothes, the image, people will play along. The moment you can't pay, the transaction is over. There's no loyalty in a transaction. Brummell spent the next 20 years in agonizing decay. Cheap boarding houses in Calais and Caen, threadbare clothes, syphilis quietly eating his brain. But the horror wasn't his poverty. The horror was that he kept performing for the ghosts of his past. Even in poverty, the looking-glass self wouldn't release him. He would polish his boots with champagne when he couldn't afford bread. He would spend his last coins on scented oil while his teeth rotted. He was maintaining the reflection, but there was no one left to look at him. In 1838, Brummell was committed to the Bon Sauveur Asylum. Filthy, paralyzed, insane. But every evening, the ghost of his old life took over. The nuns watched as this broken man struggled to his feet and arranged furniture for an imaginary dinner party. He would light invisible candles. Then he would stand at the door and announce the Duchess of Devonshire. He would bow to empty air. He would announce the king. He would hold complex, witty conversations with silence. He died performing for an audience that wasn't there. And this is the warning. Brummell believed the world was watching. He sacrificed his fortune, his sanity, and his life to impress an audience that had forgotten him before he reached the border. The tragedy wasn't that he lost his audience. The tragedy was that he never really had one. You are doing a version of this right now. The purchase you're considering, the car you want to be seen in, the lifestyle you're curating. Who is it for? Be specific. Picture their faces. Now ask yourself, do you even like these people? You are bankrupting yourself, financially and emotionally, to buy tickets to a play where the theater is empty. We are all bowing to ghosts. The only way to escape the status trap is to smash the mirror, to realize that no one is watching. The spotlight effect is a lie. This realization is terrifying at first because it makes you feel invisible, but eventually it's liberating. Because if no one is watching, you don't have to perform. You can just live. And you can save your money for things that actually build a life rather than things that decorate a cage. But be careful. Once you stop wasting money on yourself, you might think generosity is the safe path to loyalty. You're wrong. Brummell died alone because he tried to buy admiration. But the people who try to buy friendship often meet a fate far worse than loneliness. There is a dark paradox where the more you help someone, the more they secretly despise you for it. Brummell's friends simply abandoned him. But the friends you help, they won't just abandon you, they will turn on you. To understand why your generosity is actually a death warrant for your relationships, watch this video now.